Hi and welcome to a brand new Night of the Jumps podcast. This is a wrap-up of the fourth round of the Freestyle of Nations competition in Mannheim, Germany for 2023. And it was one hell of a competition. We had a packed stadium there in the SAP Arena. And man, we saw some big old tricks. We had the world team, we had Team Spain, and we had Team Czech. There was, well, actually, Spain and Czech, they've already got a win each for the season. And it was going to be very tough for both of those teams to actually go up against the world team. We had a huge lineup of riders. And to start the competition, well, before we got to the competition, the invited riders were from the world team, Luke Ackermann, David Ronaldo, and Harry Bink. From Czech Republic, it was Peter Pilart, Matej Čezák, and Philip Podmol. And for the Spanish team, Michael Molero, Danny Torres, and Marc Pignol. Unfortunately, though, before we even got through the end of the training session, one of those riders would not make it to the competition, and that was Harry Bink for the world team. He came in, he was feeling hot from X Games. He picked up a bronze medal with the double backflip with a one-handed knack, otherwise known as a McFritz. But unfortunately, as he went for a double backflip in the training session, he just undercooked his first double backie for the day, rang his bell, and was unable to get through to the competition. And just very quickly on this, we'll talk a lot more about it on the Riders Lounge podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tune in over there. We'll talk a lot more about this crash. But basically, as Harry came off the ramp, he spun very well off the first one. He felt like he had a good spin, and he did. So he slowed down the rotation for the second of the double backflips. Second of the flips in that double backie. Unfortunately, he undercooked it and crashed hard on the big airbag. He managed to get up and walk away, but he did suffer a bit of a concussion and decided it was not worth risking any injury, especially to the brain, any head knocks. It's not worth risking it. So he sat this one out. In his replacement, though, it was Pepa Aron, who has actually been our replacement. This was his third time, and he finally got a call-up. Not the best way to get a call-up to ride the competition, but at least he was there at the right time. And Pepa, and I do have to say, before we get started, Pepa looked fantastic in training as well. So it was awesome to see him get his first start at Night of the Jumps. Now, going into the competition, the first run of riders, it was between Spain's Danny Torres. What a way to start the run. Danny Torres. For Czech Republic, it was Matej Čezák. And for the world team, it was Pepa Aron. So Czech would go first with Matej Čezák, and he put together an awesome run. We saw a huge heart attack flip from him in the training session. He put together a really good one in the run. I'd probably say his training one was the best we'd ever actually seen from him. But that's not taking away from what he did in front of a packed stadium in Mannheim. Matej had a really good run and ended up with 83 points. Then it was time for Danny Torres, the legend of freestyle motocross, the man with the most head-to-head wins in Red Bull X Fighters, a World Tour Championship under his belt. And he ended up actually only pipping Matej with a rock-solid backflip with only 2 more points. So that means Matej either rode very, very well, or the judges were definitely a little bit skeptical of, did Danny have a full run of variety, whereas Matej certainly did. So it's quite interesting to see how the judging worked. Unfortunately, though, for Pepa Aron, in his first ever Night of the Jumps, he got 4 jumps in. He was looking comfortable. He was looking really good on the YZ250. And I know he had a very nice caught-over backflip to throw into his run. But as he took off, he unfortunately landed from I think it was his third jump. He landed, knocked it down into first gear, came into the berm, got himself set up with the flip levers and the steering stabilizer, all of that, and he realized on the run-up that he was still in that he was still in first gear, not in second, and he came up incredibly short. he managed to he bailed out on, well, in the middle of the air, he bailed out, kicked the bike away, landed on top of the big airbag, bounced. He managed to stay up on top where the bike actually bounced backwards and smashed into the ground. There were pieces of motorcycle flying off in every direction. But luckily, Pepa was okay and he survived to see another day. So with 85 points to Danny, 83 to Mate, and 42, obviously, to Pepa, it was actually Team Spain who would lead going into into the next part of the competition, which was the best whip competition. So Mate Cezak, he's already done the hard work in his freestyle run. He then went up against some of the best riders with the whip. And actually, David Ronaldo, he was pushing hard. Mate still managed to just get the win over him with those huge Mate Cezak signature whips. Managed to just get the win with 100 points for the Czech team, 80 points back to David Ronaldo for the world team. And in third position for Spain, Marc Pignol, he also had some very good turndowns, but it just wasn't enough, and he picked up 65 points for the Spanish team. Then we went into the second round of freestyle runs, and it was actually now Marc Pignol's chance to win the freestyle section for Spain. He had a fantastic run. He had the front flip, he had a body varial, he had all of the backflip tricks. Pignol was looking good. And actually, he ended up pipping Danny Torres, the legend, and also his teammate with only one extra point. Pignol at 86, Danny Torres had 85, Mate in the previous round with 83. And actually, you're not going to believe this. David Ronaldo, who had everything in his run with the double grab flip, he had massive tricks and a California roll. He ended up with 84 points. So now there was no points between them, basically. It was 83, 84, 85, 86. There was no room to move from the best four riders so far to come out. And the top two riders of the best four were all Spanish. So things were looking good for the Spanish team. And Peter Pillart had also a great run with 79 points in the second round. We then went into the synchro competition, and that is where it just didn't work out for Michael Malero and Marc Pignol. Actually, it didn't really work that well for all the riders. And the reason being is the SAP Arena in Mannheim is only 69.5 meters long. So trying to fit in a run-up, the jump of 21 meters, the ramp, the landing, and some space before they hit the wall at the end, it is the tightest arena, or maybe the second tightest arena at Night of the Jumps. Now, trying to get two riders to roll in on the run-up at the exact same time and hit the ramp at the same time, do the tricks at the same time, and, well, that was a tough ask. So Team Spain, Malero and Pignol, they were ejected in the first round. It was then down to Philip Podmol and Peter Pillart to see if they could take down the strongest team, the strongest synchro team, David Ronaldo and Luke Ackerman, both Games Gold medalists, both world champions. They even had mistakes on the cliffhanger, which should have been their easiest trick. They actually both made a mistake on that one. So it was the world team with Luke and David who managed to sneak through with the least amount of mistakes while going for the biggest tricks to get the 100 points, 80 points for Philip Podmol and Peter Pillart for the Czech team. And Spain, Michael Malero and Marc Pignol, 65 points. So if you look at those joker rounds, actually Spain was in third position both times. If that had changed, we may have seen a different winner for this competition. Then as we went into the third round of competition, it was Luke Ackerman, of course, who was on fire. He came out and stomped a trick on every single ramp on the course. So he had perfect course usage for the night. The only rider to hit the quarter pipe and to do the flare on that ramp. And actually, he said it was the first time he had ever done a flare on a quarter pipe onto a big airbag. He also had the double backflip as well in his run, throwing out the front flip on that rocker ramp. Luke had a huge run. Throwing a 360, there was no way anybody was going to catch Luke in Mannheim this weekend. But I'm not going to say that Michael Malero didn't try and catch up. He threw down the Cali roll, a trick that Luke didn't have, but he also had the front flip with the no-hander in the middle of his run, but it just wasn't enough. It was 88 points to Michael Malero, 94 to Luke, and Philip Podmole coming off the win at Xpilots only 2 weeks ago in Mexico, just didn't have the points to get there with 77. So that was an incredible run. The final round of competition, though, actually, it goes into the team aspect of it all, bringing the mountain bikes, the BMX, and the scooter guys into the best trick final. And for the world team, we had Luke Ackerman, David Ronaldo, and Simon Godziak. Ronaldo threw out the California roll, of course. It was huge. Luke Ackerman, the double backflip, and Simon Godziak, I think it was a backflip double tail whip. And they ended up with top points. For the Spanish team, Michael Malero had the front flip no-hander with a dab. He threw a dab in the middle of all of that. Mark Pignol threw down the California roll, and Pavel Alekin, he went for the backflip tail whip to opposite tail whip, which looked absolutely unbelievable. He was just absolutely crazy. And the Czech team, Philip Podmole, he threw down with Matej Čezak and Richard Zelinka. Actually, I think it was a twister that he landed on the scooter, but only 77 points to Team Czech, 88 points to Spain, and 90 points for the world team, which gave an overall win. You're not going to believe this. It gave an overall win to the Czech team, 496 points, the most consistent of the teams throughout the night. The Spanish team, 477, and only 2 points behind was the world team. So a few points that you could see there were, if Pepa Aron hadn't had that crash, the world team would have won. If the Spanish team had just picked up a best whip, if they were just one place higher in best whip, or if they were in one place higher in the synchro comp, the Spanish team could have won. But the Czech team, they just continued all night consistently and threw down. Overall, for the individual competition, Luke Ackerman. Now, do we have all the points in a row? No, we don't. But after 4 rounds of competition, Luke Ackerman is undefeated from Berlin 1 and 2, Munich and Mannheim, sitting in first position with 80 points. In second, Michael Malero. And in third, Philip Podmole with 52 points. Then we go back to David Ronaldo, 48, and he missed a round. So David missing a round is still only just behind in third position. Mark Pignol, 44, Matej Čezak, 40. So that is the top 6 riders so far for the season. That is after 4 rounds of competition. This is going to be insane. Anything can happen. The final round will be in Zurich on September the 9th. And so obviously 100 points will be the total. If Luke Ackerman can make a clean sweep, he will take 100 points. If Luke doesn't get there, that would throw this competition wide open. So Malero could win. Actually, if Luke Ackerman doesn't come, or if he ends up with not the greatest of points in Switzerland, Michael Malero could still win the World Tour after the Freestyle of Nations. They are the guaranteed events of the year. Let's see what might happen. Now, there were a few highlights throughout the night, and I probably would say watching Richard Zelinka on the scooter, that was one of the bigger highlights, especially for the crowd. We also had Anna Rabeatsana, who jumped the mountain bike and BMX section for the very first time. First time she went up on that 10-meter high roll in, and she killed it. Actually, unfortunately, her very first jump, she did get a bit of a buck, but I was talking to her in the break, and she said she actually couldn't see. There was so much smoke inside the arena on the introduction jumps for the BMX, mountain bike, and scooter riders that she couldn't actually work out her speed, and decided to, kind of break it a little bit at the last second. Just didn't work out for her, but she rode so well throughout the night. Pepa Aron getting away with that huge crash, but I wanted to focus a little bit on Pepa, that I think, maybe not on Pepa so much. The reason we have the replacement rider was exactly what happened. Harry Bink, unfortunately, couldn't get through from the training session, but we bring in these young guns and we give them a no-pressure training session that they're not automatically going into the competition. And I remember in the old days, actually myself, Mark Pignol, he's been through there, Leo Feeney, Davide Rossi, all of these younger guys, maybe Philip Podmole as well. We had the opportunity to qualify at the European Championships, but that was actually almost more stress. There was 5-10 riders who would compete the day before to try and get into the big competition. What we've been doing recently is having just a replacement rider. They would come, or a reserve rider. They would ride the training and just get used to the course. There was no definite that they would ride the night. So it takes that pressure off. And since actually Pepa had done this was his third time, he looked so smooth in the training session. And when Harry bailed out, Pepa came in and he had the experience already. He'd ridden this course before. Unfortunately for him, the only issue was it was the tightest course at Night of the Jumps to make his debut. It was very tough and he handled it like a pro. Unfortunately though, that first gear mistake, well, it bit him in the backside, but he still managed to get away with it and walk away, and we will see him again at Night of the Jumps. Now, it was an awesome night as well on the Night of the Jumps YouTube live stream. I was on there hosting. Again, we had 453 comments, the most we had. And building this community on the live stream on YouTube has been absolutely fantastic. Guys like John Matthews who are on there giving us the trick updates. There were tricks I didn't even know, especially for the scooter guys, for Richard Zelinka. And thank you, John, too, for jumping on there and telling me what those tricks were. Of course, Clint Esposito was on there. We even had Harry was watching in the hotel while he was injured. So it's awesome to see the community building on YouTube. And we've also got Facebook and Instagram, TikTok and all that. Between the events and after the events has been fantastic. So I want to say thank you very much to all of our fans all around the world for joining in. It makes it just that much better. Right, I think we're going to leave it at that. That was the wrap up from Mannheim, the fourth round of the Freestyle of Nations. One more to go. It will be in Switzerland. It'll be in Zurich, the fifth round of the Freestyle of Nations. Who will take out the win for the season? And it looks like we've got a few more Night of the Jumps events coming up very soon with the World Tour. I won't let the cat out of the bag, but there's a few international events that look like they could be on the radar by the end of the year. I was going to say thank you very much for tuning in. More comments, please, and have a good one. Catch you later.